The world has come to know many serial killers, unfortunately. Because of their gruesome acts and media exposure, some of them reach the status of a celebrity in popular culture. If you want to find out more surprising things related to any area of life and the world around us, do not forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and leave your like. Let's start. Here are top 10 most crazy and dangerous serial killers in the world. Tommy Lynn Sells. Tommy Lynn Sells, from Texas, was convicted of several brutal murders between the years of 1985 and 1999. He stabbed a 13-year-old girl 16 times. He was arrested after he broke into the room of a 10-year-old girl, stabbed her, and left her to die. Fortunately enough, the girl survived and asked her neighbors for help, eventually helping to catch this monster. The infamous Coast to Coast was sentenced to death and is currently waiting for his punishment in prison in Livingstone, Texas. Gary Ridgway. Gary Ridgway would throw his victim in the Green River, thus his notorious alias. He was arrested in 2001, but he eventually admitted to murdering at least 70 women during the 1980s and 1990s. Because he provided the authorities with the details of the murders and the locations of their bodies, he evaded the death penalty but was convicted of 49 murders and got life imprisonment. Ed Gein. Ed Gein was an inspiration for many of the classic horror movies such as Psycho and Texas Chain Massacre. Gein had an abusive childhood, and his alcoholic father and psychotic mother were not the best role models. His family eventually died, and he was left alone in their house, turning a part of his home into a shrine dedicated to his mother. Belle Sorensen. Belle Sorensen Gunnes killed several of her boyfriends, husbands, and even children, all because of life insurance money. This Norwegian-American serial killer was active between the years 1884 and 1908. The authorities found her body in the fire remains in her family farmhouse, along with at least 11 additional people. She was pronounced dead, but many speculate she framed her death and escaped. Ted Bundy. After Jack the Ripper and Charles Manson, Ted Bundy is probably the most famous serial killer. Bundy's victims were females. He would kidnap them, rape them, and dismember them, sometimes even keeping their heads as souvenirs. He was executed in 1989 after he admitted murdering 30 victims. Richard Ramirez. Richard Ramirez was notorious for breaking into people's homes in Los Angeles and murdering them with a variety of weapons that included handguns, knives, and even a tire iron. One of his first victims was a 9-year-old girl who Ramirez raped, beat, and murdered. He was also known to leave occult symbols as his signature. Apparently, he was a fan of pentagrams. He was arrested in 1985 and sentenced to a death penalty. He died in prison in 2013 due to natural causes. Harold Shipman. Harold Shipman was an English doctor and a serial killer with one of the highest numbers of victims ever recorded. This evil doctor was quite busy with his practice between the years of 1972 and 1998, during which he killed almost 250 of his patients by injecting lethal doses of medicine. He would then proceed to forge wills to inherit their money and cremate their bodies to get rid of the evidence. He was convicted in the year 2000, but decided for one last operation by committing suicide in prison in Wakefield 4 years after. Pedro Alonso Lopez. Pedro Alonso Lopez claims to have raped and murdered more than 300 women during his killing sprees along Southern America. More than 50 of his victims were no older than 12 years old. After he was caught and he confessed for all of his crimes, he was declared insane and was released in 1998 based on good behavior. It seems like good behavior makes up for most of your bad deeds. Jack the Ripper. This one does not need much introduction or explanation. Jack the Ripper is notoriously famous for his serial killings of prostitutes in London during the year of 1888. He would cut their throats and mutilate their abdominals, removing some of their internal organs. What is interesting is that his identity was never revealed, but it was obviously someone who did not like paying for sexual intercourse. Albert Fish. Albert Fish was a serial killer that was active in the early 1900s. He was prosecuted on the charges of rape, murder, and cannibalism. He ate 3 children and claimed he murdered 100 more. What makes him stand out in this list is the fact that he sent a letter to one of the mothers of his victims, detailing the whole process of his murder, including the kidnapping and the eating of her daughter. That is one letter that would make even Dr. Hannibal Lecter shiver. Thank you very much for watching the entire video. People like you make me really happy. If you liked it, give it a like. And if you want to know more curiosities about any area of life, do not hesitate to subscribe and hit the bell.